be October tomorrow. Let's get a voice note from Daniel, who's in Tel Aviv.
Hi Mike, this is Daniel calling from Tel Aviv. It's always interesting to see how many countries in the Middle East celebrating the latest developments. I always say that, secretly most of the Middle East is pro-Israel now. Sadly, it's not the same in the West. And I'm quite frankly sick of listening to politicians just say this line that Israel has a right to defend itself. Every country has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right, after being attacked on so many fronts, to win this war. And it should win this war, and it will win this war, and it should not settle for anything less than that.
And I think there's no question, Theo, is there, that Netanyahu's position has been strengthened over the course of the last weekend because of the killing of Nasrallah and the kind of dismantling completely of Hezbollah.
Yes, I mean, Hezbollah's been taken to bits.
Taken to the cleaners.
Absolutely, and it's now looking as if Israel is, is building up tanks on the border, on its northern border with Lebanon, and it's looking like, from the evidence that's in our front pages of our newspapers, well, across our papers today, that Israel is probably going to invade.
I mean, if nothing
Lebanon
else,
to finish off Hezbollah.
Yeah, if nothing else, an incursion or two rather than maybe a full-scale invasion. But certainly they'll be crossing the border with armoured tank divisions.
Yes, and Netanyahu has been very frank about this. I mean, there was lots of pearl clutching at the United Nations last week, saying we must step back.
And all these people walking out of the chamber. I mean, it's so pathetic.
And actually, as Daniel says there, Israel has a right to bring these are terrorists.
Well, this is the thing. I mean,
these people are responsible for the murder of innocent civilians.
Yes.
And Netanyahu is in effect doing what the West should have done many years ago.
Even Kamala Harris. I mean, I put a tweet out yesterday saying Israel is now the world's policeman because they've now gone after the Houthis in Yemen. And I actually said, some of the people demonstrating in defence of Hezbollah now in America, you're kind of going, what kind of world are you living in? Because even Kamala Harris came out belatedly yesterday and actually said it was a good thing that Nasrallah had been, done away with. Yes. So even the left on her side are having to admit that it's a good thing.
Yes, and just in terms of, you mentioned, of course, there the Houthis. The Houthis are a threat to, whether goods that are transported through to this country, we've been working. The Royal Navy has been actually working to ensure the safe passage of shipping through that part of the world,
through the Gulf,
and what Israel has done in terms of taking out the Houthis is good for Britain.
Yeah.
That has a net effect of actually making sure that we can continue our supply chains continue, and we can continue to keep goods arriving in this country in a timely manner in the way that they should.
Exactly. Even in Syria, people were celebrating the death of Nasrallah because there were Hezbollah in Syria killing the Christians there, and it's been a horrible mess. And the only two countries that have said that it's a bad thing are Iran and Iraq. And what does that tell you? I think we know what side we want to be on. Let's talk about Boris Johnson, the political memoir of the century. I don't think I've seen quite so many words written in the Daily Mail over the course of the last 3 days. It all started, I think, on Friday or Saturday with that mad story about how he apparently was planning to invade the Netherlands to get some COVID jabs. Today, he's got Macron wanting a punishment beating. We've heard tales of him being swept out to sea. I mean, we kind of know all this stuff, but, I mean, because it's happening during political party conference season and it's happening the week of Tory party conference, they must be seething because he's basically getting all the headlines and they're not really.
Yes, and Boris Johnson is still box office for the Conservatives, isn't he? And that's why they've timed this serialisation in the Mail with his book. But in terms of actually, did we know this? Yes, we did know this. Make no mistake, Emmanuel Macron, when it came, he hated the fact that we voted to leave the European Union, and that was a democratic decision in this country. 17.4 million people voted for it, and of course what Boris Johnson said, and he had these meetings with Macron when trying to solve the small boats crisis, trying to get a deal, his deal over the line before that 2019 general election, was that actually what Macron wanted to do is he wanted to see this country suffer. He wanted to ramp up those small boats crossings because he wanted people in this country to feel, actually, should we have left? And there's obviously...
Which is a pretty despicable way for a politician to operate, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason he's done it is because he's worried about the right wing in his own country ramping up what they call Frexit, this idea of France leaving the European Union. Of course, France with Germany, without those two countries, the European Union amounts to naught. And that's why, actually, it suited Macron domestically to see, to try and, turn the thumb screws on Britain after we voted to leave.
Yeah, I think the thing that I found good about the book is that it's back to sort of Boris's flowery descriptions of things, because he does know how to turn a phrase, doesn't he? And he is completely and utterly out of all sync with any Tory candidate right now who wants to be leader of the party. But speaking of Europe and revenge, what about this story in most of the papers? It came in last night quite late. The hard-right Freedom Party, FPO, on course to win elections in Austria last night. It's an anti-immigrant party, basically, but it's also pro-Russian, slightly worryingly.
Yes, and what's interesting about this particular story is, of course, it comes off the back of what we saw with the AfD in Germany winning.
Well, it's happening all over Europe,
and it's happening. We saw, obviously, Giorgia Meloni is now the Italian Prime Minister. We back in the summer, we saw Marine Le Pen push Macron incredibly close. I mean, there was a point at which actually the left had to sort of unite to lock out that National Rally party, but in Austria it's happened. They're now the Freedom Party is now, and their plans are is promised to remigrate large numbers of migrants, create fortress Austria, and restore ties with Russia. And of course, it's a remarkable turnaround for this political party that was dead and buried 5 years ago after a whole load of sleaze scandals.
There was loads of scandals, yeah, absolutely right. A couple of sort of human interest stories, you might say. One in The Sun, page 19. An OAP was turned away from a doctor's surgery by reception staff who told him he was already dead. I mean, this is a record even for the NHS, isn't it?
Yes, I mean...
Alan Rocket is his name. He was informed that the record showed that he was deceased when he was trying to re-register his former practice. Imagine
turning up. You've survived bowel cancer. You turn up, and apparently the staff was smirking as they sent him away, saying that he'd died, and of course they couldn't register and re-register him. So he had to go back home, get his passport as a proof of ID, and then turn up. He said, "It's really upsetting. 5 years ago this month I was diagnosed with bowel cancer. I'm still in remission now." I mean, poor Alan Rocket, 69 years old, and he's already dead. Well, fortunately, he's alive.
Yeah, well done. A drug dealer who escaped from prison spent 9 years living in plain sight under his own name and paying tax in Britain. This is also incredible. In the page 15 of the Mail, a guy called Robert Fitzgerald, he basically escaped from an open prison where he was sent for the last 18 months of his term. He absconded in November 2015 and lived quite, legally, paying taxes in an address where they could have easily tracked him down. It took them 9 years to find him.
He turned up in Oxfordshire, got a job, started paying taxes, registered with HMRC. I mean, this is criminal justice system all over.
This shows you what's going wrong.
The level of incompetence. The man is busy paying his taxes. But I feel a bit. Can you feel sorry for a drug dealer? I'm not sure you can, but I almost feel sorry for Robert Fitzgerald. Reading this story, he's received no sort of mitigation for the fact that he's gone on
that he's actually lived a law-abiding life. Exactly right. Theo, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Theo Usherwood there.